go on to another phone call a lot of families are getting. It's over opioids. Greg, we are so angry about the opioid crisis that's facing our nation. This is your first nation-building panel you're doing with us.
Yeah.
And this is a wonderful idea our production team has thought up as we get ready to celebrate on July 1st. We're looking at a few issues that we think need special attention for nation building, and the opioid crisis has got to stop in Canada. And it's abundantly clear that there's going to be spiritual solutions needed for this. Listen here first to what Jane Philpott, our federal health minister, had to say about leading Canada's health portfolio and what the biggest crisis is.
Well, when I look back on 2016 and I think about the big issues that I had to face as Canada's health minister, I think one of the very top issues is this opioid crisis that we're facing in the country and the skyrocketing numbers of accidental opioid overdose deaths. It looks like, we haven't got the final numbers in, but it looks like over 2016 that there will be upwards toward 3,000 young Canadians that will have died of an opioid overdose. We've never seen numbers like that before. The reality is in places like British Columbia and Vancouver in particular that there are sometimes 4 or more people in a day dying from an opioid overdose.
I mean, Lorna, this has turned into an epidemic. And, we were just talking before coming on air here of Vancouver, and not only Vancouver, but Toronto and even some of our smaller communities. It's absolutely horrible.
I took a call from one of our partners. Her son's girlfriend had put a jug that had opioid in it in the fridge, and her son is dead. Like, it's just becoming an epidemic that is really got to have some spiritual solution for the healing. Our health workers, our emergency workers, the front lines absolutely need us. So we're bringing you 2 great experts here.
Yeah. We have Dion Oxford, and Dion is with the Salvation Army, and he works with the shelters. And welcome again to the program.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you back on 100 Huntley Street.
It's good to be back.
Strategist for, I don't know, how many 5 different areas in downtown Toronto. You've seen more drug addiction issues.
Yeah, we have these 5 shelters with 600 or so beds, men and women. And addiction and mental health kind of coupled together is a very, very big deal these days. With the opioid thing, we're seeing that sort of overdose thing on the rise in the big time because things are being cut with fentanyl, which is the most dangerous drug that's hitting the streets these days.
Wow. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. We also have with us Dr. Harrison Mungal, and you're a mental health specialist in the Toronto area. Welcome again. Is back to Huntley Street as well.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right. Okay. I said I was angry. What's a better idea? Harrison, Dr. Mungal, tell us, what should we be doing about the opioid crisis?
I think it needs to be addressed, and I really appreciate that you are bringing it on show right now, because I see it every day working in the psychiatric unit, and we have so many overdose. And I guess, kids today are looking for anything that's going to stimulate them. And a lot of times with parents, we're so naive in thinking, it's just kids are hanging out and maybe trying new things, because as teenagers, we all want to try new things. But reality, it is damaging the brain. And when I do psychoeducation, I tell parents, imagine if your kid's brain is like an apple and you're putting pins on this brain. When you pull the pins out, there's a hole in there. And that hole will stay there permanently. And that's what this opioid is doing to the brain of our young people. Unfortunately, when they're taking so much, they end up dying because the body is not equipped for this. It affects the opioid cells, which affects the stomach. And then from there, just have so much complications.
Dion, what do you think is driving this? Why has this become such an epidemic? And I mean, you've probably seen it before this actually really hit the news, but people are sitting back and go, what is going on?
I mean, addiction itself is rampant throughout all of community, not just the homeless community. Like we have somewhat socially acceptable addictions like caffeine or television, but we're seeing opioids being on the rise in terms of prescriptions, and people who never thought they would be addicts are becoming addicts because they're being prescribed a lot of pills, oxycodone for back pain. I grew up in Newfoundland, and lots of men and women who who work labor are having back pain and getting.
In my own local congregation, I know of people who took it for wisdom teeth, who took it for eating disorder, who took it for back pain,
Yep.
and they didn't mean to get addicted,
Yep.
and parents have got nightmare stories. This is, and I'm a little congregation of 150 or
Yeah,
whatever.
people who never dreamed they would become addicted. The biggest problem these days, what's happening is it's being prescribed like water, which is a problem that needs to be solved. But also then this fentanyl thing where these drugs are being cut because it's cheaper, and then people are overdosing on opioids because they thought they have a particular tolerance, but they didn't know they're taking fentanyl and are dying.
Okay, we have an expert clip here we're going to go to. Dr. David Gerlink is a medical toxicologist and a drug safety researcher at Sunnybrook Health Sciences Center. Here he explains how the addiction to these chemicals occurs.
Best available evidence right now suggests that about a third of people who begin these drugs come to misuse them at some point or display some feature consistent with aberrant drug use. As the dose goes up, then we see the dependence and the risk of addiction and the risk of respiratory depression, the slowing of the drive to breathe, which is largely responsible for the deaths that we see.
Okay, but it does start often out of legitimate pain relief. Dr. Mungal, how do you not let, you may be taking a painkiller, an opioid, how do you not let it become an addiction?
I think a lot of times, from research, what it shows is that there's a nuclear in the brain called a mesolimbic nuclear. And that nuclear, once it's tainted by any form of anything that we use, that will become an addiction, whether it's food or television or the prescription medication or heroin or anything. It affects the brain, and once this nuclear is affected, it's very hard to just quit. And so to break an addiction, apart from, I believe, God's word is number one. It's the foundation, prayer, just like God can do miracles physically, he can also do miracles with the mind as well. We need to create a diversion around this nuclear in order for individuals to be able to find a solution. So when there's a craving for the addiction, there's a diversion that can take place so they can actually yield to something else rather than go back to whatever addictive methods that they have.
And what can we do as a culture? Do we just put our hands up? I know you guys are right on the front line, but our viewers watching today, what are some of the practical things we can do?
For us, we believe that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. We actually believe the opposite of addiction is community. So we actually think people turn to drugs and alcohol and other addictive things to escape loneliness. So for us as a church, it's all about community. It's about welcoming people as being created in the image of God, not judging people, being in community and forming friendships. And we think that is a big sort of step forward for us.
Is that a safe injection site?
We do safe injection sites. We believe in that. We believe in harm reduction. We believe in naloxone, which is an opioid sort of inhibitor. All of those, though, are Band-Aids, really, honestly, like good things we have to do. We're seeing people ODing on the bathroom floor. We have to do things to keep people alive, no question. But those are Band-Aids, truly. We need community. We need connection.
Okay, we're going to keep this conversation going. We'll be right back with some final thoughts. But sometimes there's things going on in society that need a wisdom way bigger than what we're navigating with. And that's why 100 Huntley Street has Bible teaching each and every day. Here is Pastor Robbie Simons with today's Bible teaching.